Kelly Elder began keeping hermit crabs when she said yes to one of her children asking for them yet again while in a beach shop. Arriving back at the cottage with their new crabs in a tiny wire cage, she sensed the store hadn't given them proper care instructions. She quickly found herself immersed in land hermit crab research and was grateful to find online organizations dedicated to their care. Kelly now has a colony of 27 purple pinchers. She has 3 captive bred babies, adopted 22 unwanted crabs, and still has 2 of the original 4 purchased from the beach shop. She loves helping people adopt versus shop for all pets, but particularly wild-caught hermit crabs. Kelly was raised on a farm in southeastern Virginia and graduated from Old Dominion University with a chosen career in the IT industry. Unable to continue a career due to severe Crohn's disease, Kelly stopped working 8 years ago to give what energy she did have to her family. She loves teaching and cooking. So last fall, she opened an online hermit crab food business. Her shop, south of the ocean, gives helpful information on proper hermit crab care and nutrition, in addition to offering highly nutritious food and edible decor using hard-to-find, unique ingredients she personally harvests. She wants her shop to convince more people to keep their crabs in optimal conditions with the highest quality nutrition. Kelly resides on the shore of Connecticut, is married, and has 5 children. 3 are grown, living on their own, and 2 teenagers are still at home. In 2021, she became a proud grandmother and now understands what all the fuss is about. Now she has even one more reason to live her frugal lifestyle and help leave this world a cleaner place. Please welcome Kelly Elder.
Hi, I'm excited to be here with you today to learn more about frugal feeding. Thanks for joining me. So frugal feeding is just a way of us using our natural kitchen scraps from feeding humans in our lives and converting that into hermit crab food. So I want to show you today the process all the way from shopping to dehydrating and grinding and storing your food. So you have longer usage of those scraps. Everyone knows how to wash a vegetable and take it, what's left over from fresh and throw it right in the tank. That does require a little bit of pre-planning. So we're just going to work on some of those things today, and hopefully all of my trial and error, this will help you avoid some of those things, and I'm going to teach you some of the tricks I've learned over so much food storage for my hermit crabs before I opened a shop of my own. Now, I'm not trying to put us hermit food vendors out of business, but I'm going to teach you how really you could use our shops to supplement your hermit crabs food if you want to make some of it on your own. I firmly believe that the average family household makes enough natural kitchen waste to completely feed their crabs, with the exception of protein. But nonetheless, please enjoy using our shops. But I'm also just going to be teaching you how to use common ingredients that you already buy from the grocery store. Let the spirulina, the bee pollen, and all those ancient grains, leave that to us vendors. You don't have to make your families start eating gross stuff that they don't want to eat. You can simply just use chicken and beef and broccoli, all sorts of great stuff. And I'm going to help teach you how to do that today, saving you time and money. The first thing I want to teach you, though, is that it really starts with kind of a mind shift. When you go grocery shopping, be thinking about what it is you're buying for your family that you're going to cook for them or for yourself, and then also how you can translate that to hermit crab food. So for instance, if your personal goal is to only serve your hermit crabs organic, then only buy organic for your family. And it's really, in the grand scheme of things, not more expensive, if at all more expensive. And especially now, because you're gonna have zero food waste going into either your compost or your trash. So we are gonna need some special tools. I'm gonna tell you about those real quick before I get started much further. But we're being frugal. Please do not go buy from Amazon. Please do not fire up your gas engine and go to Walmart or Target shopping just yet. We're gonna buy secondhand. We're gonna be better stewards to everything given to us, everything that we've earned, and we're gonna become more frugal. Funny, we decided on this topic before we had this massive inflation, and most people are feeling a pinch. So I hope this saves you money in your hermit crab food budget, may even save you money in your human food budget. All right, so you're gonna need a dehydrator. You can use your oven if it goes low enough in temperature. I'm not going to get into the details of what temperature to dry everything at. You can easily find that online. Animal proteins get dried at the highest temperature, and wildflowers get dried at the lowest with fruits and vegetables. They're the bulk of what you're going to dry, and they do take time. I will tell you that dehydrating food for hermit crabs is way easier than dehydrating food for humans. The reason for that is because we want everything bone dry for our hermit crabs. Once you grind them all up, if it's not bone dry, you're gonna have a bit of a mess on your hands. Does take a little trial and error, but bone dry is the way to go. And if you've ever made jerky for your humans, once it's bone dry, it's inedible for us, but that's how the hermits need it. The next thing I wanted to tell you is that a mortar and pestle, I'm gonna show you like right here. It's just made out of granite or marble usually. I think it's marble actually. And this is how you grind up your food. Works great. I think I got mine ages ago at TJ Maxx or something. Another option is like a NutriBullet or a BlendJet. I've got it right here. You do not need a high-powered blender for doing the amount of food you're going to be doing from home. You can buy them secondhand. You'll find BlendJets and NutriBullets, things like that, or blenders, food processors, all the time at thrift stores. So a couple of resources I want to go ahead and tell you about. There are groups on Facebook in most communities called Buy Nothing sites. Buy Nothing sites are where people who live in the town offer things they don't want for free. Or they also will put on there things they're in search of. The only rules of these groups are that you actually buy nothing. The goal is to decrease our footprint on the earth. So this all plays into us being frugal, right? So don't go buy new, look for used, try Buy Nothing sites on Facebook, try Facebook Marketplace, then go to thrift stores, okay? Now that I've told you how to grind it, the dehydrator, for decades I used the Nesco American Harvest. It's worked great for me. I love it. It's nothing fancy. It's not commercial grade. Works like a charm. I've never had a problem. So do look for dehydrators. A lot of people bought them with good intentions and don't use them. They're collecting dust. It is a fast thing that gets sold at thrift stores, but Facebook Marketplace, I see them all the time, going from like $15 on up. Trust me, you do not need a fancy one. You just need one that holds its temperature, has a nice number of trays, or that you can add more trays onto. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm gonna wrap this portion up now and let's get started making Hermie food. Thanks.
All right, so let's say tonight, how about we have some grilled chicken thighs and broccoli? All right, so what I have here is just a family pack of organic chicken legs, so 8 chicken legs, and about a head and a half of broccoli. So I'm just going to proceed to show you guys how I chop the broccoli down. I'm going to separate it into 2. What the humans are going to eat is going into the white ceramic bowl, And then what I'm going to prepare to dehydrate for the hermit crabs is in the lower right portion of your screen. So ordinarily, we eat almost all of the stalk, but a lot of people don't. So I thought I would trim a little more off. And, you're just going to chop the broccoli however you normally chop it when you prepare to cook it. And it's going in there. As far as washing, I pre-washed the whole thing with regular water. But then after I've separated the hermit crab vegetables from the human vegetables, that's when I wash it in prime. Because I'm not really interested in soaking my vegetables in anything that smells like prime. It does not smell too tasty. So anyway, I'm just going to chop a little bit more here. But this could be any dinner, right? You might typically prepare an animal protein, 1 or 2 vegetables, and a starch. So a common thing for us is chicken. We do eat a lot of broccoli. And you're going to be able to see just how much you're going to get by simply having 1 dinner's worth prepared and stored. So now we're at the stage where I have now washed the hermit crab broccoli in prime water. You see my prime sitting there to the side. One thing I found that makes things a lot simpler is it's hard to see, but there's a small glass bottle there. If you just keep a small amount of prime, like in a small bottle in your kitchen, near your kitchen sink, it really makes things easier, because a lot of times when I have small bits left, I just go ahead and I dunk them into and clean them in prime water before I freeze them. We're going to end up with a lot of small things that we're going to learn to use and turn into food. So that's coming up a little bit later. But now you'll see that I have a lot of small pieces of broccoli left over just from where I've trimmed. I've got longer pieces there in my strainer. So you can get these plastic trays to line the bottoms. They were created for like fruit roll-ups and shoe leather. They work really good when you're dehydrating small pieces. They can be a little expensive. So here I'm just making one out of wax paper. You can make a liner out of parchment paper or waxed paper. I prefer waxed. It's less expensive, so it's more frugal, and it's more pliable. So when I'm finished, I actually just rip a seam down from the outer edge to the inner edge, roll it up like a little cone, and then everything just falls off the wax paper into my storage container. So you'll see there, I've just trimmed around the outside, trim a hole for the center, and voila, now you have it. You're first going to want to load your bottom tray, which I prefer to, of course, put my lined tray at the bottom, because as I'm stacking the other trays on top, things are going to fall through the grates, and also as they dry, they shrink. And depending on the water content of what you're drying, it can shrink considerably. So now we're going to pop these into our dehydrator, and it's going to take on average about 8 hours. And that depends on the temperature that you dry it at, the thickness of whatever you're drying, and the water content of what you're drying. So we can just check on those from time to time, and when they snap into, that's when they're done. Now, time for our chicken. So we're going to be trimming our chicken, because that's what we do before we cook it anyway, right? At least I do. So we're going to just trim it as we would for dinner. And with what we're trimming off that we would throw away, it's going to become hermit crab food. So first I'm going to be removing the skins of all of them. So you're going to see me do that here. And I use gloves when I handle raw meat. It's not a hermit crab thing. It's just a me thing. So you don't have to wear gloves. So I'm trimming off the skin here. And we're actually going to cut the skin down into strips and cook it for our crabs. And so there we go. There's our one piece of skin. And then I always trim off the little bits of fat because it just, to me, makes a mess in the grill, and it is what I do. So this is what I would trim off anyway for my humans, and I normally trim off that edge. And there's going to be a little bit of thigh meat on that piece there. But now, so that one is ready. So we were doing that with all 8 pieces of chicken. Now here I'm going to debone this one piece. I do often buy my chicken for us boneless, skinless. But if I just take one package and buy it and do this to it, I'm going to have chicken 3 ways for my hermit crabs for months. So you're just going to take the bone out of the chicken piece here, and then we're going to clean it up. The entire piece of chicken is still going to go to the humans, and we're going to feed the bone to our crabs tonight. And what I'm going to do with the chicken skin is I'm actually going to cut it into strips, and I'm going to bake it, and then I freeze that. And chicken skin's actually high in both fat and protein. And if you make sure you look at your free copy of the first ever Crab Con cookbook, and the recipe of what temperature and how long to bake the chicken skin is actually in that recipe book, along with so many other really, really cool recipes. All right, so here I'm just trimming it up so it looks nice and neat, so we don't have those little pieces falling through the grates of my own grill, catching things on fire. And there is, an ever-growing pile of goodies for me to go through and turn into hermit crab food. So here I'm just showing you too that if you wanted to take one piece for your crabs, you could just slice it up and go ahead and cook it. So as a reminder, proteins do not have to be cooked. They can be served raw or cooked, except shellfish. You have to cook shellfish. Please, please, please. Shellfish carry a disease that can be transmitted to our crabs, and because we're in an enclosed environment, that would be fatal to your colony. So always, always cook shellfish. So slicing the chicken now into strips, or the chicken skin, right? And you want the skin, not the fat. That soft gelatinous fat is just going to melt in your oven and give you more of a mess to clean up. All right, we have chicken 4 ways tonight. We have boneless, skinless thighs for the humans, chicken skin strips that we can bake up real quick and then freeze, and we have more chicken skin than we need for a year for hermit crabs. We have a little bit of straight thigh meat we can cook, dehydrate, and grind, and a chicken bone for tonight's dinner. If you're like me, we sometimes end up with fruits and vegetables that are well past their prime and the humans don't want them. So instead of throwing this away or composting it, we're going to use the entire thing for our hermit crabs. This is organic cauliflower. Since I'm feeding the crabs the entire thing, I have pre-washed it in prime treated water. And at the bottom right of your screen, I'm going to be collecting the outermost pieces that really look the worst. The crabs are going to have fun picking through this. I'm going to give them that fresh. I don't suggest putting fruits and vegetables in your dehydrator. They do need to be in good condition when you dehydrate them. So don't dehydrate bruised and going bad produce. So we break that down. We're going to dehydrate it. We're going to freeze a little bit of it to look at the difference between vegetables after being frozen versus fresh. All right, so I have a little baggie here. Best tip I can give you is keep a small container or a baggie for animal proteins and another one for fruits and vegetables in your freezer. All those little bits when you make lunch or salad and side dishes, things you would normally put down the garbage disposal, put in your compost, put in your trash. This is excellent Hermie food, especially if you buy organic, so you feel better about it to start with. Keep prime in your kitchen by your kitchen sink, and you're just going to go ahead and wash up each piece, throw it in the baggie, and then when you have a bag full, you can go ahead then and dehydrate and grind. Nobody wants to pull out a dehydrator for 1.5 strawberries. I get that. So just collect it until you have enough that it makes sense to do this. And then you can dehydrate it and grind it up. And we're going to do that in the next step. So the magic of the dehydrator is happening now, and I didn't record that part for you guys.
All right, well, we're at the stage now where we're ready to grind the food that we have dehydrated. But first I wanted to talk to you quickly about dried beans and legumes. You can find these, of course, in your grocery store. They have so many different varieties, and they're about $2 a pound. Very economical. If you don't currently buy them for your family, consider it. But I also want to talk to you about them because they're an excellent source of protein for your hermit crabs. So the thing is, you would buy your beans, and as you're soaking them in water, you would pull then some of them out before you season them. Here's the thing, beans, they need to be cooked before you feed them to your hermit crabs. Do not try and feed these to them. I guess they'll pick at them. But we want them to eat them. They're nutrition. So you're going to soak them as you would for humans, and then you're going to cook them. Just cook them without seasonings. Then you put them in your dehydrator and dry them. Then you can grind them up or serve them whole, either way. But they're an excellent source of protein, and it does not take many beans out of an entire bag for the humans. You take this many or so and soak them, cook them, dry them, they're ready, and they're food. Now let's get to grinding. Set those out of the way. So I have here all of the foods that we dried in our previous segment that I wanted to show to you. Now see, just with what we gathered, we have a lot more fruits and vegetables here than we do protein. But one of the things that I like to do really is measure and also weigh. But I wanted to talk to you, sorry for the dog barking in the background. First, here's our cantaloupe, all right? So you can see it is dry. Now, I want you to know that drying fruits and grinding fruits actually is a little harder, right? There's a lot of natural sugar in fruits. They're gonna get sticky. There's ways around that, but you also don't have to grind them up. But dehydrating them is great. So I had a little over a pound of cantaloupe. There was nothing wrong with it. I had cut it up for us to eat as humans. Sat in the fridge for a couple of days. It looked a little old and sad, but completely edible. So I dried it. So now I'm gonna weigh just to show you. So this cantaloupe, this amount of cantaloupe was a little over a pound before I dried it. So we're gonna see how much water was in it. So let's zero out our scale here. And a pound of cantaloupe has now been dried down to 1.3 ounces. So that'll also tell you how much raw ingredients goes into all of that food that we are so thankful you buy from us food vendors. It takes a lot. It does dry up down to very little. So we're gonna do some grinding. Remember, this is what we had when we made dinner. We made broccoli and chicken for our family. Now this right here is how much cooked and dried chicken we have. Remember, this was one family pack of thighs. This is just the chicken meat that I trimmed off, right? And remember, I had an entire bone with meat on it that I threw into my tank, and my colony ate on it for a couple of days. They loved it. Now we can grind this up into a powder. We also had all of the skin. Whoa, pounds of skin. I baked that in the oven and popped it in the freezer. A couple of things to know about dehydrating and food storage. Fat goes bad quickly. You really cannot dry something with a high fat content. So don't try to dehydrate fat. It'll eventually get dry-ish, but it's also not going to store. If you do really want to do that, you need to put it in the freezer. Fat goes rancid. So this is just lean. This is just pure meat here. This is our protein. Then remember, we made broccoli for the family. This is everything that I took off of just what was it? 2 heads of broccoli we had for dinner that night. Look how much it's made. And then I wanted to talk to you about our cauliflower. Remember our little sad head of cauliflower? I'd let it get a little too old. This is 1 head of cauliflower, chopped, dehydrated. Oops. And remember how I've taught you we're gonna freeze some things? I wanted to show you some vegetables look totally different after they're popped in the freezer. This one, it's cauliflower, not too pretty to look at. The only difference is that it had been frozen before I dehydrated it. This one was fresh. Completely usable, just not as pretty. Hermits don't care. All right, and then here's our little mixture of this and that. We could call it just salad, I suppose. It's got dried fruits and vegetables in it. This is about a week's worth of just maybe some fruits and veggies that didn't look too lovely, or I was making salad, lunches for my kids, had leftover pieces of, there's pepper down in here, there's cantaloupe. As a reminder, you're gonna wanna save all those little bits. This is the white part from inside of a pepper. Here's the stem. You don't wanna miss out on any of that, all right? So next we're gonna grind this all up, and I'm going to then let you know how much food this is going to make for our hermit crabs. You can serve it to them just like this. Nothing wrong with that. But let's get started. All right. So you don't want to overfill your containers. These are designed for ice and fruit smoothies, that type of thing. Let's grind up our chicken first. That's not too much chicken for one batch at all. Now, you may not get, and you probably won't get with one of these, if you're used to a very fine consistency of the commercial food you buy from vendors, you're not gonna get that consistency, but what you are gonna get is a lovely mixture of a little bit coarse and a little bit fine. So depending on the size of your crabs and their likes, they're gonna get everything. Here we go, a little bit of noise. All right. So now I'm actually going to show you, if we keep in mind that approximately 1/3 of a teaspoon feeds 3 hermit crabs per day of dried foods, okay? I'm gonna first of all show you how much this weighs. Well, I've just made a mess. Okay, dried, we have over 1/2 ounce of chicken there. So now I'm just going to show you how much that equates to. Now remember, we need about 40% protein to feed our hermits every day. That's what they need. You offer it, I promise you they're going to get what they need. They know what they need. We just need to offer it. All right, so here is 1 teaspoon. All right, so if we're feeding our hermit crabs a meal, just in your mind think, half of it needs to be protein. All right, so there's 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. All right. We have 8 teaspoons of cooked, dried, and ground chicken. So you do the math. If a teaspoon is enough protein for hermit crabs, 1/3 teaspoon per day, all right? So this is 8 teaspoons. That means you have enough protein here to feed approximately 3 hermit crabs for almost an entire month. That's just from one dinner, and you bought them nothing special. All right, next up, let's do our little fruit salad here. Now, and I'm gonna tell you guys, I many times do not try to separate it out. I grind them up together and enjoy the way it looks, and they like the way it tastes. So we're not even gonna separate it. We're gonna grind it up. All right, now I ground the second batch a little longer because I wanted to show you. You can either have fine or coarse. It just depends on how long you grind it for. So, see, you've got nice powder down there and chunks as well. All right, so I've just finished grinding the rest of the cantaloupe. It smells amazing. I've actually never ground cantaloupe until this very moment. It ground up great. For how sweet this one tasted, I'm surprised. Now, the tropical fruits get really, really sticky. And there are some tips and tricks, but that's a little beyond the scope of what we were going to do today. So, I won't go into that right now. But I wanted to show you that. So there's that. All right, so then that leaves us with cauliflower and broccoli. But I'm not going to spend your time grinding that right now because I'm positive that you get the gist of what I'm saying. But I did want to show you. All right, so here is the hermit crab food that we have made simply based on dinner the other night. Looks delicious. Now, if I go in and add some calcium, this is a complete meal right here. I've got protein, I've got carbs, I've got color enhancers with the carrots and the red cabbage, and broccoli is also in there, right? We have little bits of broccoli in there. So add a little bit of calcium and you have a nutritiously complete meal. But here's the thing, if you're offering calcium in your tank at all times, there's really no need to have to add it in. Also, if you give your crabs leaf litter, which is an excellent thing to do, they both love foraging through it, feels very natural to them, but it's also highly nutritious. So you cover a couple of food groups by always having a calcium mix and also leaf litter in your tank. So look at all of this food, you guys. Let's see. I think I have about a half cup. Let's grab a cup to see. Now also, you'll want to keep in mind that the finer your food is ground, the more nutrient dense it is, right? So if I grind this down some more into like a pure powder form, it's not going to take up as much space, but it's still a lot of food. All right. Now you really know how much food you got. We've taken all the water out of it. I'd say that's 2/3 of a cup right there. So you'll want to store it now in an airtight container. We're just going to store it in here temporarily. We put a lid on it, keep it in a dry, cool, dark place. You can also pop it in the freezer. That helps maintain freshness. Give it a name and you have crab dinner. All right. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining me for Frugal Feeding. I hope you learned some new tips and tricks to start making at least some of your own hermit crab food for long-term storage. Just remember that anything that you make and provide to your hermit crabs, even if it doesn't turn out as well as you had hoped, they're gonna probably love it. It's very fresh, very nutritious. Don't forget the proteins and have fun doing it. Thanks.